We are now in our final message for our 3-week vision series with Pastor Eric at the Machine Shop. But I've got a question for you. Have you found one of our messages before both hopeful and helpful, and think that maybe there'd be a friend out there that would maybe be able to benefit from seeing one of these messages? Well, if the answer to that question is yes, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Go find that message. It doesn't have to be the last message or this message or maybe one few before. And do me a favor. Share that on social media or text it to a friend and say, hey, I thought this might be useful to you, or put it on Facebook or Instagram or something that says, hey, I really got a lot from this. I think you might as well. That helps us to reach more people. While you're choosing that, let's go ahead to our break and continue in our Vision series. I'm going to take you over to Pastor Eric at the Machine Shop in just a moment, but give me 30 seconds on something really quick. You probably have noticed that Eric and I are repping the same sweatshirt during this Vision series, and that's because it's our Vision Apparel. It's got it even on the back that Jesus is bigger than Sunday. And so what we would love is if you would like to have one of these, you can get one. Basically, all you have to do is pre-order the apparel, and we'll tell you when it drops and where to pick it up. Here's the link for it. You can write this down or open up a new tab right now and order one. It's smccutah.org/Vision Apparel. And at that URL, what you can do is pick whether you want a sweatshirt or a t-shirt and pick what size you want, and then also tell us which location you want to pick it up at. That's all I wanted to let you know about. I know that you're probably thinking, hey, where do Eric and Adam have these cool sweatshirts from? You can get one too. So now there, you've got the information. Let's go ahead and join Pastor Eric at the Machine Shop as we wrap up our series.
We're on the program and we start cutting some metal.
Well, here we are for the final time in this Vision series at the Machine Shop of a friend from my small group. We've chosen this as a place for this series because it can teach us a lot about the role of a church. We learn from the New Testament book of Ephesians that the local church is to be a place where people are equipped to be built up and united as mature Christians. Mature in knowledge in their heads, mature in love their hearts, and mature in service with their hands. And in this season, we're focused on what it means to equip people. We're talking about what people need to be equipped with in order to know and do and believe and feel if they're going to be fully devoted and fully delighted followers of Jesus. Now, if you are a Jesus follower, here's what we've been saying. You must be equipped for that way of life. And if you're not, you'll be set up to fail. And I see it happen all the time. So the 3 areas we believe we must be equipped in ourselves and equip others in are the areas of head, heart, and hands. So in week 1 of the series, we talked about equipping our minds, which happens through one primary tool at SMCC. That's SMCCU classes. And week 2 of this series, we talked about equipping our hearts, which happens through one primary tool, SMCC groups. And now we're talking about equipping our hands for activity as Jesus followers, which happens in many ways, but it happens with a few specific tools here. Those are our ministry teams and men's and women's ministries. We have teams inside the walls of SMCC and outside the walls of SMCC. In our just released annual report, which you can pick up today, you'll see a page of our ministry partners. Really, Head, Heart, and Hands is just a new and very tangible way of talking about full devotion at SMCC. And of course, these 3 areas of discipleship, they're at play in everything we do as Jesus followers. It's just that some environments are more intentionally designed for specific impact than others. So while classes equip the mind, your heart will be engaged. And while groups impact the heart, your head will be engaged. Ministry teams put your hands to work, but it should, of course, be from the heart. We just want to make making disciples as clear as possible. Now, many churches, when they describe discipleship, talk solely about activity and what devoted people do. And those devoted people, well, they're usually worn out. We're convinced that the Bible describes devotion first in terms of authority and then identity, which then leads to activity. Remember, full devotion can be broken down into the following categories: authority, which is our heads, theological maturity; identity, which is our hearts, relational maturity; and then activity, our hands, which is serving with maturity. And today we're talking about what it means to be equipped in our hands. But before we get there, I want you to know this. Whenever an organization goes through a transition like we have here, there are three things that can happen. And these three things can happen in any organization or any company, even in any relationship. See, when we evaluate reality, we have a few options. We can either give up, stay put, or take ground. And when you look at reality, these are options that we always have. So we've just gone through this big change at SMCC. Our incredible founding and lead pastor retired. It was a beautiful season. And during all of this, no one that I've talked to has said, now that Paul's gone, let's just close the doors. No one has said that SMCC should just retire from Kingdom Impact. Additionally, no one has said, let's just stay put. Everyone I talk to has said this: let's take ground, let's go. I know that you want to take ground. More delight is better than more despair. More people living under the banner of Jesus is better for human flourishing than less. I want more people to know Jesus. I want all people listening to me today to know Jesus more. I want to know him more. And this is built into our mission statement: as many people as possible. This means we don't have a give up or stay put culture here. We never will. Our effectiveness, it affects eternity. There's always been a pull in the human heart and in church to give up or stay put, but we fight that with everything we have. So we are constantly refining. We're constantly trying to improve. And right now we're focused on our midweek strategies. We've talked about head and heart. And now it's time to talk about where the rubber really meets the road. Serving God with our hands. Our hands category is where we get stuff done. It's where people know how much we love them and know how much we love him. It's where we fulfill the as many people as possible part of our mission. It's where we expand our ministries, expand our influence, expand campuses, and expand God's kingdom. It's also where we act differently because of our trust in Jesus. We obey him in every area of our lives. We behave differently. And we see that all in the first century. I want to show you a passage that talks about the importance of putting all that we've learned in our minds to work with our hands. James writes to a group of Christians in the first century. He says this: do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in a mirror and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looks like. But whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they've heard, but doing it, they'll be blessed in what they do. Those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. James, he was a senior leader of many churches in the first century, and he's telling those churches that he leads that they need to not just listen to God's truth, they need to do it. Head, yes. Heart, yes, but also hands. And if you don't do something to live out your gospel identity, it's like forgetting who you are. What he talks about is really personal growth and serving those in need, keeping a tight rein, being unpolluted. That's all about living with Christ's character. While caring for orphans and widows, it's really all about serving those in need. So at SMCC, we want to put things into your hands to equip you personally for behaviors that honor God, both in the roles you have and the things you do. So we want to equip dads to connect emotionally with their sons. We want to equip bosses to build companies with kingdom values. We want to connect moms to the community where they can make an impact. We want to equip students to share their faith. We want to equip Christians to build churches that equip more people. And this happens through men's ministry, where men get specific training that happens best in those environments, not in groups or classes. This happens with women in women's ministry, where women get specific training that doesn't happen in groups and classes. And through volunteering on ministry teams, we want to put you in places where you can get your hands dirty, your faith dirty, serving others. And you might say, Eric, I'm not sure that's happening in the place of ministry I'm a part of. I know. That's why we're closing the gap between what's real and what's ideal. We have work to do. And it's not just the staff that does this, it's all of us. So here's the reality right now. Our ability to equip is limited by our commitment to it. What I mean is that our ability to impact lives is directly related to how many people engage in this mission. Our mission is fueled by individuals like you. And let me be so clear. We can't plant more campuses and new places until we have more volunteers to build teams, more money to secure locations, and more leaders to lead others. We can't go wider until we go deeper. And I want to remind you or tell you about how important this is, about the great responsibility entrusted to us. When we see this role from God given to us as individuals, it will fuel greater commitment from each person here. I'm convinced of it. In 2 Corinthians, the Apostle Paul is writing to Jesus followers to help them see how important their commitment to equipping is, how important their commitment to ministry is. He says this. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 5, starting in verse 17. He says, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come, the old has gone, the new is here. All this is from God, who reconciled us to himself through Christ." So he's talking about a new gospel identity. And then look at this next part. He gave us the ministry of reconciliation, that God was reconciling the world to himself in Christ, not counting people's sins against them. And he has committed to us the message of reconciliation. We are therefore Christ's ambassadors, as though God were making his appeal through us. Guys, he has entrusted this work to us. He makes his appeal through every one of us, through every kids volunteer, every singer, every greeter, every SMCCU teacher, every small group leader, every giver. We do what we do, not because we have to, but because we get to participate in God's work of reconciliation. We've experienced it personally. Now we share it with others. And according to this passage, all Christians are ministers. Now here's the sobering reality. You know someone who's not been reconciled to God. They live next to you, they raised you, they share an office with you, they play golf with you, they drink coffee with you. SMCC exists to partner with you in reconciliation. We are ministry partners. And SMCC, it has a great story to tell. And that story is not done. And that story needs you. And we truly think that the SMCC way of church, it's not the only way. It's probably not even the best way. It's just our way. And we think it'll introduce people to Jesus. And this state is full of people who have no delight in Christ. And we're for their joy. And as long as there are people without delight, we have work to do. We aren't done. We are taking ground. And the gospel story, it invites us to be active participants and ministers. So here's my one ask at the end of this 3-week series. Are you ready for this? Here's my ask. Would you do something at SMCC that you've never done before? That's it. Think about your head, your heart, and your hands, and do something to be equipped and do something to equip another. So if you've never served on a team, try it. If you've never given, go for it. If you've never taken a class, sign up. If you've never been in a small group, it's time. If you've never prayed for SMCC, please pray. Monday through Friday is a great time to get equipped by someone. The Sunday experience is a great time to invite someone. Remember, Jesus is bigger than Sunday. He's inviting you to follow him with your head, with your heart, and with your hands. Please, would you consider doing something at SMCC in this season that you've never done before, to be equipped and to do some equipping.
Thank you, Pastor Eric, for those really good next steps. That is essentially this. Why don't you go ahead and do something at SMCC that you have not done before? Take a next step out in something as you are being equipped. And 2 things I want to let you know about that. Number 1, if you just have questions and you're trying to figure something out, figure out what to do next, or just want to get in touch with one of our pastors, go ahead and visit smccutah.org/connect. And that will bring you to a form. It takes not even 30 seconds to fill out, but that'll get you in touch with one of our pastors, and you can write in whatever question you have, and they'll reach back out to you. Now, at SMCC, number 2, we have tons of next steps to take. And if you just want to browse the next steps that we have for you to take, just go ahead and visit smccutah.org/next steps. That will allow you to view and browse all the next steps that we have at SMCC for you. I hope that you have enjoyed this 3-week series as we've gone through this Vision Equip series together. Starting next week, we have a new series that is 3 weeks long again, and this series is about the 3 temptations that Jesus faced in his time on earth. If that sounds even remotely interesting to you, believe me, you will think it's great. You're gonna really like the information that you find in that. So here's what I wanna do. Invite you to one of our physical locations. If you can make it there, if you are within a driving distance of one of our locations, come to one of our campuses during that time. You're going to really enjoy it. If you can't, I'll be back here next week with you for that new temptation series. Have a great week and take care.